All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 77 of the On-Air Advocate. Where at the On-Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On-Air Advocate, and I am super excited that you are joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or whether you are catching it on the replay. Now, as always, over here at the On-Air Advocate, we pick a focus month or a focus week. And this week we are focusing on Alopecia Awareness Week. And so with that, I am so excited to welcome Deidre Nero. She is the Secretary Board of Directors of the National Alopecia Areata Foundation, and she is also the owner and attorney of Nero Immigration Law. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you are here tonight to tell us your amazing story. Oh my gosh. I do not know you. I have not met you in person yet, but I feel from all the articles I've read like I know you.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. Yeah, so hi, everybody out there in Facebook land. I'm Deirdre Nero. I also want to introduce you to January. This is January, so hello. So January is going to go on my desk, but I wanted to do the dramatic reveal of the bald head. So there you go.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
This is the actual me.
And Deidre, you are tuning in you're in Florida, correct?
Yes, I'm in Coral Gables, Florida. This is actually my law office that we're sitting in. You can see all my fancy books that I haven't opened in years because everything's online now, but they're still sitting there because they look
right. It looks like the right thing to have there, right?
Yeah, one of them supposed to have books in their offices. So there you go.
Wonderful. And it's probably much warmer there. It is already becoming fall here in Wisconsin. It went from 90 to 50. I don't know what's going on.
It's in the high 80s here still. So yeah, very, very steamy. I was sweating in my wig all day. So
I want to hear more about that later. What that is like, kind of giving the audience, what that is like, especially living in a warm climate. But first, I really wanted to take everybody down the beginning of your journey, when this started for you, when you started to notice hair loss, what you thought that it even was, all of that. So let's just start from the beginning.
Okay. So, well, the beginning was that, growing up my whole life, I had a full head of curly hair, super thick, really, really thick. I could barely get it into one of those hair bands or you remember, I don't know if you remember, but I'm going to age myself, but those banana
clips.
It looked like a banana with a thing on the end. I always wanted to wear those and I couldn't even close it around my hair because I had so much hair. And pretty much it was always like that, super curly, very thick. My sister used to bend me over the tub and because I went through the stage where I didn't want to brush it. Gross, I know, but I was really young. And she would bend me over the tub and just be combing it and just killing me. And I remember crying and screaming over the knots that she was pulling out, but always had major bushy.
Right.
I grew up in New Jersey, so I had the bangs that were straight up like this.
That is right. I've tried to tone it down over the years.
The whole deal. So I was I never found any spots as a kid. Growing up, I never had any issues. In fact, sometimes I would complain that I had too much hair, irony is an interesting thing. But when I was age 21, I was in Spain, actually. I was studying abroad my junior year in college. And one day I was just in the bathroom, getting ready to go out and do whatever, go to class, or I don't even remember now if I was going to class or going out at night, but I was getting primps and I flipped my head over and I was blow drying and I had a perfect bald spot, right there on the crown of my head. And it was perfectly round and perfectly smooth. And I was just what?
That's what I would say.
Was hysterical. And I was I couldn't stop looking at it and touching it and rubbing it. And I was just what is that? What is going on? I just went berserk. And I had never, I didn't know what alopecia was. I had no idea. I was living abroad. I was having a high old time. I wasn't in a super stressful or anxious time of my life. I was, living it up in Europe and, didn't have too many cares in the world, but I was, immediately that obviously all changed. I freaked out. I called my mom. And I was hysterically crying on the phone with my mom. And I'm like, I'm bald. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I found a bald spot. And she was like, oh, shut up. Like
you have a lot of hair. You have all this hair.
You are crazy. Like, just don't worry about it. Have fun. You're in Europe. You're studying abroad. Like, don't worry about that. And so I kind of tried to just like not think about it for the rest of the time that I was there, because I didn't know what to do, right? And I was just like, I was
did you instinctively, when you saw that it was a perfect circle, did you did something tell you inside, like in your gut, like
I had a feeling that something was weird about that, right? Because why would it be like such a perfect circle and so like perfectly smooth? But I had never heard of alopecia, right? So I didn't even know that was like a thing that happened to people. So I kind of just tried to like put it off of my mind and go about what I was doing. I had so much hair, right? So I just like moved my part a little bit and looked the other way. And like, you know, for all intents and purposes, it was, you know, gone. It wasn't visible at all. So I just kind of went with that. And for the next couple months while I was away. And then when I got home, I remember the first thing I did was show my mother the spot. And I remember her face. She was like, you know, like, oh, okay, like this is something. Like, I don't think she had believed me, right? And this was, you know, not to age myself, but this was a while ago, right? So it wasn't like now where we would be like taking pictures and sending them over WhatsApp to, you know, our mother. I mean, this was like, you know, before the cell phones with the cameras on them and all of that. And plus I'm living in Europe, so I didn't even, you know, have one of those. So basically she hadn't seen it, right? Because there was really like no way. I mean, I remember we didn't even like email. We used to go to like the internet cafe and spend like 10 minutes a day on like the Hotmail that I created like in, you know, back in the early 2000s. So, you know, it wasn't like we weren't FaceTiming, we weren't doing stuff like this. So I hadn't seen it until I got home and showed it to her in person. And she was really like, ooh, you know, her eyes.
So she thought the same thing, like it was smooth and it was perfect.
Yeah,
and if you had lost some hair, it wouldn't be like that.
And so immediately we started going to like the doctors, and I went to the dermatologist, and I went and got, you know, tested for my thyroid and, you know, whatever else they test when you're doing the, you know, all the initial tests for them.
Like autoimmune testing? Did they start the autoimmune testing or not?
They did autoimmune testing, to be honest with you, back then. I think they just did like a visual exam, and then they did a blood test to make sure that you didn't have like lupus or, which I guess is autoimmune testing, or thyroid is the big thing that they always were testing. And then basically at the end of that appointment, they were like, oh, you have this thing called alopecia areata. And I was like, what the heck is that? I've never heard of it.
And let me remember how to say that.
Yeah. And they were literally like, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, bye. Like, it was literally, I don't remember that doctor, like, ever explaining to me, like, ever giving me any guidance on, you know, what it was, what was going to happen, what I could expect, you know, nothing. Like, I remember them just saying the name of the condition and sending me on my way. And so, you know, that was probably the worst thing that could have happened, because even though this was a long time ago, we still had the internet, you know, so I immediately go home and I start researching. And, you know, I started seeing pictures of people that actually look like I look now. But, you know, mind you, at the time I had a full head of hair.
Right. And you were 21.
One spot. And I was 21. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, am I going to go bald? Like, what is going to happen, you know? And I just didn't know what to expect. So I really kind of was very upset. I didn't want anyone to know. I started doing injections into the spots. I know a lot of people do the injections. It's usually like a cortisone type steroid. I think Kenalog is the one that most dermatologists use. You know,
and is the hope of that with the steroids to stimulate the area to get hair growth back again?
The injections into the spots will usually, I mean, it usually works pretty well. Will make that spot grow. But the problem with the injections is that, like, you could be growing this spot, and then like the next day you have a spot here. So then you start injecting this spot, and then the next day you have a spot here. So I always used to say it's like playing whack-a-mole, right? Because you're like treating this spot, but then another one pops up, and then you're treating that one, and then you're always chasing the spots, right? It's like the game of chasing the spots. And so, you know, varying degrees of success. Because look, if you only have one spot, which a lot of people that have alopecia areata, they'll get one or two spots, they'll treat them, and, you know, that's it. I mean, they don't ever get it again, or maybe they just get 1 or 2 spots now and then, you know, every couple of months or, you know, year to year, but it's not like a thing that becomes something that spreads all over their head. I mean, so a lot of people, you know, that's how it is. And so that's what I was hoping that it was going to be. And that's what my dermatologists were always like, oh, don't worry, it'll grow, you know, that spot will grow. If you get another one, we'll just inject that. You'll be fine, you know, this and that. But, you know, obviously that's not what happened.
So when after you saw that one spot, you went to the doctor, then you decided to start getting injections. When was it? How close to that time frame was it that another spot popped up?
You know, it's so funny because it's been so long now that I'm kind of like, I don't even remember details like that. I just know that, like, for a lot of years, like probably almost 10 years, like I just had patchy alopecia. Like I basically had a full head of hair. And then I was just like always treating spots. And sometimes I would have 1 spot, and sometimes I would have 3 spots. And sometimes the spot would be, you know, back here. And sometimes it would be more like, you know, up here or here. But I still had like a decent amount of hair. So I was kind of able to hide it. And so I did a really good job, honestly, of hiding it for a lot of years. And it was something that was bothersome to me. And, you know, worrisome, but at the same time, it wasn't something that completely, you know, altered my self-image and my identity and everything at that stage, you know. Then I would say around, I want to say, so I got married and divorced, and around the time that, like, I was married for 3 years basically, and I know in that time period I still had hair because I have like photographic evidence that I did, but I know that that's when it started kind of getting more, and the patches
escalated again,
started to get bigger, closer together, and so then like 2 patches would grow together, and so instead of like 2 patches, it would be like 1 big patch like that, you know. And so then they started kind of getting bigger and growing together. And so the more that happened, right, the less hair you have. So your hair starts to look thinner. It's a little bit harder to cover. I remember buying things like, there's this stuff that is, I forget what it's called now. It's been so many years, but it's like
that dye powder.
It's almost like a makeup that you put on top of the bald spots so that it's dark and so that it's easier to camouflage under your hair. And then I remember, like, around the time that I was getting divorced, and this is where I think, like, a lot of people say, like, the stress relationship with the disease, that is not a proven thing, by the way. So, you know, there's a lot of debate on whether, you know, how
stress really has a factor in it or not
in this. But what I, you know, think is probably correct, at least in my journey, is that, you know, stress doesn't cause alopecia. Alopecia is genetic, right? So you're not going to get alopecia just from stress. It's, you know, it's a genetic disease. But I do think, at least in my circumstance, that stress played a part in, like, turning up the heat on the stove.
Right.
You go from, like, low, and then you have, like, a stressor or a stressful event, and it turns it up to high. And that's what happened with me, because I was always just patchy, you know, and then never had any other hair loss. I mean, I still had full eyebrows, full, you know, body hair, no issues with any other hair loss except the patches. And then around the time that I was going through stressful events like my divorce and some other stressful things that kind of coincided with that and all stemmed from that same event, the patches started to get huge. And then before I knew it, like, literally, I was like, had like 1 patch of hair left. I was bald. I mean, let's get serious. Like, you know, I was hanging on to, like, stray little, for, you know, pretty much I was bald. And so I remember one day my sister was like, you know, can we please shave that 1, you know, sprig of hair that you have coming up out of your head, because you're a bald woman. Like, you need to face it. Like, let's get rid of that. Your head's going to look so much more beautiful if it's just smooth. I really didn't want to do it, but, you know, eventually I just kind of gave in and did it. And that was actually a big turning point. I hear this from a lot of people that have alopecia and that ends up, you know, where they have so many patches that they're pretty much bald, even though they're not completely bald. You know, that the point that they take control to shave their head is really like a big,
it's a turning point of reality. Like, this is it, like embracing your new
and a
you.
little bit before that, I had bought my first wig. I really didn't want to do that. I remember saying to my mom, like, I'm not going to wear a wig. Like, that is not happening. Like, I refuse. Like, I'm not going to wear a wig. And then there I was, you know, at the wig shop, like looking at wigs, because at some point, like I had so little hair that I like couldn't hide it anymore. And I was just like, I need to get a wig because I can't, you know, literally like I had like one thin like layer of hair covering, and it was like so obvious.
Right.
And if you get like a little bit, I know the girl you interviewed yesterday was saying the same thing, like
or wind,
breeze, and basically you're like exposing like just crazy
right,
all over, you know. And so I was like so self-conscious. I remember being at like networking events that were like outside, and it gets kind of windy, especially like down by the water here. And I was at this event at this restaurant that was like on the river, and it was so windy. And I remember the whole time I was just like, oh my God. And I was so anxious that the people I was talking to and trying to, you know, do professional networking with were noticing what was happening with my head, that I remember after that, I was just like, I gotta get a wig because I can't deal with this anymore.
Right. Now those different stages, if we back up just a little bit, the different stages where you went from having only the patches to now being completely bald.
Right.
So that's something called different, because there are different stages of alopecia, right?
Yeah, I meant to actually say that, but then I got caught up in
that's fine.
So the patchy alopecia is called alopecia areata.
Okay.
And that is like, you know, with the patches. And that is usually how most people present. Like the majority of people with alopecia have alopecia areata patches. And probably like so many more people than you would ever know, because most people that have that, you know, they hide it. They don't ever talk about it, right? You don't know someone has that usually. And it's not as visible usually as when you graduate to like the next level, let's put it. So when you basically have no head hair, but you still have facial hair and body hair, it's called alopecia totalis.
Okay.
Totalis meaning like your total head, basically. And then the third stage, which is what I have now for the last, a little less than 10 years, maybe like 6 or 7 years. Let's see, we're into about 6 or 7 years, I have what's called Alopecia Universalis, which means no hair anywhere. So I lost my eyebrows, I lost my eyelashes, I don't have any hair on my nose, which is hell with allergies. The good stuff is, you know, here down. I also don't have any hair, so no arm hair, no leg hair, no pubic hair, no armpit hair. That part's awesome. So
right.
For the you know, neck down alopecia, but from the neck up, it's a struggle. You know, when I lost my eyebrows, it was about 2012, I want to say, when I lost my eyebrows and my eyelashes, and that by far was the most difficult thing to deal with. Way worse than losing my head hair. And I hear a lot of people that with alopecia universalis that say that, like, once the eyebrows and the eyelashes go, it's like such a blow, because you literally look in the mirror and you're like, who is that? Who is that? Like, you don't look like yourself. It completely changes your face. Like, I remember I'm not even kidding, like the worst feeling in the world. And it's happened to me like many times where I like looked in the mirror and I like jumped. You almost like you're like get startled by your own reflection. And that is like such a weird feeling that you know, a terrible feeling, terrible, that I wouldn't wish on anyone. I mean, like, scaring yourself in the mirror is like a terrible feeling, and it's very damaging to your image, your self-image, you know, and your self-esteem to feel that. And so that was really like the hard part for me in all of this. Now I have microblading. I know you were talking about that a little bit yesterday. I did it like, I want to say it's been like 1.5 years, maybe, since I did it. I've had to touch it up a bunch of times because it does fade. Like, I know your guest yesterday was talking about that. Right now I have makeup on top of the microblading because it's faded a lot and I haven't gotten it touched up. I also wear like a ton of eye makeup, which, you know, because I'm trying to like compensate for the fact that I don't have eyelashes, you know, by wearing like a lot of eyeliner to give some definition. I don't know if you have it, but in the pictures I sent you that you included in the video, there's one picture of me in there where I have nothing. It's before I got my eyebrows done. You know, I don't have any makeup on, and it's just like the no eyebrow, no eyelash. And I still struggle to even look at that picture, to be honest with you. Like, that is rough. That's rough to see yourself like that. So for me, when I got the eyebrows microbladed, it helped.
Okay.
Because at least, like, when you are looking in the mirror, you look more like yourself, you know, and you don't have to actually like put your face on to look like that. Like, yeah, I darken it, but it's
right.
there.
At least it's something that you wake up with in the
You know,
morning.
yeah. So it was helpful to me. Also, because I always joke, like, when I was trying to do my eyebrows and like draw them on, or even when I was doing for a while, they have like these temporary tattoos, which is really funny because it's like you get your eyebrows delivered to you on like a sheet of paper, and they come and it's like eyebrows, and then you cut them out and you like put them on. But even when I was doing those, and they look really great, by the way, but I could never like get them even.
Get them
right?
even?
Or like get them like curved in the right way, you know.
Because
so
you went to school to be a lawyer, not to be a tattoo brow artist.
It's super stressful, right? When you're trying to get dressed in the morning and you're trying to deal with this. But the other thing is that, like, I always was like, oh, well, I guess I'm surprised today, or today I'm angry, or today I'm, you know, looking like I'm confused or something, because my eyebrows would be like, you know, this way or that way. Or, you know, so it was like Mr. Potato Head, I would always say, like, you know, which eyebrows are we going to get today? So at least with the microblading, like, I had a professional put them on in the right spot at the right angle so that I can not, you know, I can show emotions the real way. And
yes.
Eyebrows were put on the wrong way that day.
Now, with those stages where you had lost all the hair, do you know statistically, is that much more rare? I mean, is there a much larger...
I don't know the actual statistic off the top of my head. I know the statistics for alopecia in our country is 6.8 million in America, but I don't know what portion of that is areata totalis universalis, but I do know that it's much more rare to get totalis and universalis. So a lot of times, like, when you go to like a NAF conference or you go to like an alopecia related event, you'll see a lot of people with universalis, and you'll think like, oh my God, like everyone has universalis. But actually, you know, statistically, it's much more common to have patchy alopecia areata than to have totalis or universalis. Some people do like what I did, which is where I actually had every stage and I progressed. And only once did I kind of, and it was also in the pictures I sent you that you got the video.
Right. That it came back.
I had like some regrowth where it looked like it was starting to come back in, and then it all fell out again. And ever since then, I haven't had any regrowth. That was like maybe like 3 years ago. But, you know, since then I've only, except for that one time, I've only progressed like to the more extreme side and not back. But that doesn't always happen. Like, a lot of people will have spontaneous regrowth. I know some people have like cyclical, where like, I know one girl, I'm friends with her from NAF. She will like grow hair, and then she'll have it for like a certain season, and then she sheds. And then it goes back, and then she sheds. And
now, when it gets to this progressive like stage, do basically the doctors, I mean, they're not recommending, like, when they see it progressing in the way that yours did, they don't recommend any longer steroids and things like that, do they?
So, at least for me, like, once I got to the point where I had more bald than hair, like, my doctor was like, I can't keep injecting her head, because it's just too much. Like, it's too much surface area for me to inject. And also, a lot of times they say that, like, when you do too many injections, you can get atrophy, where it actually like caves in. And I did notice for a while there, I got injections in my eyebrows, and I grew eyebrows back for like 2 years. I had eyebrows when I had nothing else, by getting the injections into my eyebrows. And we did notice that after doing it for a while, I was getting atrophy in one of my eyebrows, though. It was starting to like kind of like cave in. And that's not even why I stopped, because I was like, well, I'll take a little atrophy if it's covered in hair, you know. But honestly, it just stopped working for me. Like, I just noticed that even though I kept doing the shots on the regular schedule that I had, like, at some point it just stopped working, and they started falling out again. And you know, at that point I was like, no, well, you know.
Right. And so when you got to that point where you grew back the hair again, all the hair fell out, the hair is gone. And I know I was looking at those photos of you and your sister together, how beautiful the two of you are. When did you decide, like, I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be sad. I don't even know all of those feelings you were feeling at that time. If you can share that with us, like when you finally got to the point.
That, I mean, I'm still getting angry and sad. I don't think like anyone can completely ever like not have moments, but I think that it's just a matter of like, do you spend more time of your day angry and sad, or more time of your day where you're fine and not thinking about it? And like, when is the point where you're shifting to more time when you're okay with it? You know, because I think everyone's always going to have moments, and that's kind of part of this alopecia journey that we're all on, is like, it's like a roller coaster, you know, like a lot of ups and downs, a lot of emotional roller coaster, but also unexpected, like it's very unpredictable. So like tomorrow I could grow back some hair like that, like when I had like a couple years ago, like a bunch of spontaneous regrowth for no reason, and then it all fell out again. That could happen, you know, or a lot of people don't know, like when they're areata, if they're ever going to progress to totalis or universalis. Maybe they never will, you know, but you don't ever know that. And so you're always in that like constant state of like, is it going to get worse? Is it going to grow back? Is it all going to fall out? Like, how do I know what to expect? And the answer is like, you can't know what to expect. So for me, like at some point,
what was that point though? Like, you know, you've lost the hair, you had went to that doctor, they told you had alopecia, you just kept losing it. During that whole time, were you doing a ton of research? Were you starting to advocate? Because you are just powerful in all of the things that you do and an inspiration. And so how did that progression?
No, you know, I didn't really get to any of that until I found NAF, the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. So basically, I think if I'm doing the math correctly, I believe it was 2011. And I was visiting my best friend who lives out in California. And I was there visiting her. And somehow, and I don't remember now, like my memory is starting to go on this one, but I don't remember how I found out about it. But somehow I knew that NAF was having their annual conference in the city where my friend lives, and it was LA. And so I remember saying to her, would you mind like dropping me off at this conference and then coming and picking me up later? Because I want to go check it out. And she was like, yeah, of course. Like, I think that'd be great for you, because she obviously knew that, you know, what was happening with me and how hard it was for me to deal with. So she was very supportive in, you know, that idea. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take you and drop you off, even though driving in LA is insane. And the poor girl probably spent like 4 hours in the car back and forth, but she did it for me and she dropped me off there. And I remember it was my first NAF conference, and I sat in the very back the entire time, and I cried hysterically the entire time. But it was definitely like the turning point for me, because at that point, I saw other people with alopecia for like the first time. I had never seen anyone else with it. I mean, I knew there were other people with it, but I never met anyone, and I never saw anyone live in person with it. And then all of a sudden, I'm literally like in this hotel with hundreds of people with alopecia walking around, and I was like, oh my God. You know? And it was so
the emotions.
Yeah, I was like so emotional. I cried and cried and cried the whole time. But I remember, and I didn't take off my hair, and I was wearing a wig. And then I think at one point I might have put a scarf on that I bought there and traded the scarf out for the wig. But I mean, I was very like, I didn't really talk to that many people. I was kind of keeping to myself, but I was like, wow, you know, I need to find out more about this organization. I need to get more involved with this. I need to do this again, because this is awesome. And this is, you know, going to help me. So then the following year I went to the next conference, and it was in Washington, DC. And that year I actually started talking to people and, you know, being a little bit more. And I think in that year in between, I really started to kind of, you know, tell more people. I mean, I still wasn't like walking around bald and stuff, but I was, you know, being more open with it. I decided to go back to the conference, and I met Gary Sherwood, who is NAF's communications director. And I think he was like fairly new to NAF at that point. And we were in DC at the conference, and in DC, at the DC conferences, they do like what they call a Hill Day, which basically means that they do a portion of the conference is literally like getting into groups that are grouped by states, and then going up onto Capitol Hill and basically doing like a lobbying day, like with your legislators, where we're like talking about NAF, talking about issues that are important to the alopecia community, but doing it on a large scale with like all the people from the conference. And I remember I had a group for, I think it was like Florida, Georgia, and Alabama or something that were grouped together. And the guy that was supposed to be the leader didn't show. And so Gary, I had been talking to Gary earlier, and I was like, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I live in Miami, blah, blah, blah. And we were chit-chatting. And I guess he remembered that I said I was a lawyer, and so he found me. And he was literally like, hey, lawyer. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you're the leader now of this group. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he was like, the guy didn't show up, so you're the new leader. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever, I'll do that. So I became the leader of this group.
Oh, great.
And it was awesome. Like, we just had like the best day, and we went and we did, you know, the hill day, and it was like so exciting. And I think I was bald, you know, I don't think I had my hair on at that point. Because, you know, even if I wasn't out and like walking around town in my real life bald, like at the NAF conference, that's usually like a safe space for people who normally don't go bald to go bald. So I think I was definitely, you know, bald at that point at the conference. And at the end of that conference, they said in like the closing announcements, they said, hey, we hope you guys enjoyed this Hill Day, and we decided that we're going to create a group of advocates basically for NAF that we're going to call the legislative liaisons. It's going to be a new program, and basically like we want volunteers. If you're interested, you know, you basically come talk to Gary, and we'll try to get you into this new program. And so actually I immediately volunteered. I knew that was something that would be, you know, a perfect way for me to get more involved with NAF, and also to be an advocate. I mean, that's what I am, you know, like I'm a lawyer, and that's what I do. That's what I know. So I was like, this is a, you know, perfect
natural transition.
Held the two worlds together. And basically like the title of our little show today, like turn something in my life that has been such a negative for so many years into something positive that I could, you know, do not only to help myself, but to help others that are, you know, struggling with this. So I got involved immediately. I was one of the first legislative liaisons, and basically I've been part of the program ever since. And we've done a lot of really cool trips to Washington, D.C. We actually just had one, not last week, but the week before. We were up there. We go and we lobby, and actually right now we're working on this. I'm going to show you. We're working on this bill right now.
What is that all about?
So that's HR 2925, and that is a bill that we've been pushing in Congress, getting co-sponsors, and it will actually help classify wigs as durable medical equipment so that they can be covered by insurance. So that's something that we've been working on a lot. We also worked on getting a disease-specific meeting at the FDA last year. For alopecia. They picked like 40 diseases of like all the diseases in the world. There's like thousands of diseases. And they picked alopecia as one of the diseases that got like a full day at the FDA, where literally like people with alopecia went and testified and talked about their experiences. And basically the idea is that the FDA, in looking for suitable treatments and, you know, someday a cure for this, like what are things that patients want in, you know, a treatment, in a drug, you know, what is something that would make that meaningful to us? Because a lot of times, like a lot of these things that they're coming out with, like it might grow some peach fuzz, and then the doctor says, oh, well, you have regrowth. And people with alopecia are like, you know, I've got a head of white peach fuzz. Like, what does that do for me? That's not a meaningful, that's not a meaningful result, you know? So it's all about understanding, you know, what is going to be something that's meaningful for the patient. And then they came out with like this report called the Voice of the Patient report that basically summarized all of those findings. And so those are some of the things that we do on these advocacy trips.
Okay.
And it's really been just an amazing way for me to get involved with NAF. I got a great relationship. We formed a great relationship with my representative that is in my district, Ileana Ross-Leighton. She's actually retiring, so I'm gonna have to form a new relationship with the new person that comes in. But, you know, I remember one of the first meetings I had with her, I did what I did at the beginning of this. You know, I went in with my wig on, and I started talking to her and she was just kind of like, what is this chick talking about? And then I took my hair off and I put it right down on the coffee table. And she was like, oh, and I immediately got her attention. She immediately started to really listen to what I was saying. You know, it was a bit of, you know, in the beginning, I remember she was saying a lot, oh, thank God it's just hair. Thank God it's just hair. And I'm like, okay, I need to, you know, work on this. I need to make her understand it's not just hair. Like, this is a serious condition that causes people to have a lot of, you know, depression, stress, anxiety, you know, self-image issues. Like, there's a host of issues, not to mention, you know, the physical changes to your look, but also problems that you have with your eyes, problems with, you know, breathing and allergies. And a lot of people have, I don't luckily, but a lot of people get like really bad have really bad nail problems that have alopecia, where their nails are cracking and splitting and it's very painful. Not everyone gets that, but some people do. So, you know, I had to make her understand, like, no, it's not just hair, you know. And by the, you know, by the end, like, now she's been like one of our staunchest supporters. She's been a huge, you know, help with us co-sponsoring the bill in the last Congress, you know, writing letters to the other Congress people, writing letters to the FDA. She actually went on the floor of the House of Representatives and talked about alopecia areata on the floor of Congress. So, you know, she became like a huge
advocate.
Yeah. So like that was all from our, you know, and, you know, the other groups, the other people do the same thing with their Congress people. You know? And so it's all about creating awareness and also advocating for, you know, things that are important and meaningful to our patient community and making sure that, you know, our voices are heard. And a lot of times, like, the offices we've gone into, now they know us, right? They're like, hey, what's up? You know, I've seen the bald people come in, they're like, know who we are, and they welcome us with open arms. And, you know, they already know about alopecia because we've been up there so many times talking to them. But I remember, like, the first couple times when we started doing it, like, we had to educate them. Like, they had no idea what alopecia was. They didn't know, you know, why is this woman bald? You know, what's the deal? What's her deal? Like, you know, does she have cancer? Which I get all the time. And, you know, it was an educational process. And so, like, that's a lot of what we do also.
But I think what you're speaking to is so important, is that giving people the knowledge, because, you know, knowledge is powerful. If they really know what's happening, if the community knew what was happening in so many different sectors of medical illnesses, impairments, disabilities, all of those things, awareness is key.
The more people know what alopecia is, the less weird it's going to be to see like a bald woman walking down the street, and the less, you know, people are going to just immediately assume that, you know, I have cancer, I'm going through chemo. I mean, there's always going to be people that make that assumption, but the more people know what alopecia is, the less it's going to be like a given, you know, that's like, so I've been like really trying to just get out there and be, you know, an advocate for alopecia.
A voice.
I still wear my wigs for work, but I'm very like, you know, everyone knows I don't hide it. Everyone knows I'm bald. You know, I do take my wig off in the office sometimes and have no hair on, especially when it's hot. I do spend like all of my personal life that I'm not like sitting in my office with clients bald. I was just on the cover of this magazine. Magazine. Bald in the article, you know, so I have called myself a half timer. I'm like usually like about 50% of the time I wear a wig and 50% not. It's starting little by little, I think, to become more time without than with.
But it's a slow process.
I just don't really feel the need a lot of times to wear it. Unless
from the fact, like you were saying, it's very hot and uncomfortable, correct?
Super hot, super itchy. I've tried like every kind of wig with every different kind of base, and, you know, I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, that stuff is hot, especially in Miami, and and you know, it's just annoying and expensive. You know, like
Now, that was a quick question I did have for you. Those injections and whatnot, are they covered under insurance, or is that another fight that you guys have to go through?
Injections were covered, at least when I got them. I know that there's no FDA approved treatment for alopecia. So I'm sure that there are people out there that have problems getting the injections covered, but I didn't have an issue with getting that covered. Now, the new drugs that they're studying right now, you know, there's a lot of studies. We're really at kind of like a crossroads with the medical
technology research.
They're really finding drugs that they think this could be something, you know, these drugs called JAK inhibitors are big ones that they're looking at, that are drugs for other diseases that they are finding out cause people with alopecia to grow hair. But these are like serious drugs, and they're not sure exactly yet, you know, like how much do you have to take, for how long do you have to take it, if you stop taking it, are you going to immediately lose your hair again? What are the long-term, you know, side effects?
Yeah, the side effects.
Are they safe for children? You know,
Right.
does it have to be medicine that is systemic, like a pill that we take that then is systemic in our body, or can we formulate it to be topical,
Cream.
that we just rub it on our head and it only grows the hair on our head, but it's not affecting our internal organs? I mean, these are all things that they're looking at, but none of those drugs, even though they're drugs that exist for other diseases, are FDA approved for alopecia. And so they're not covered by insurance. So even if I'm like one of these brave people, I'm not, by the way, like I've decided not to be a guinea pig and try any of those because I'm nervous, but it's very individual. Like I know people that they're like, yeah, bring it on. I'll try those drugs. I don't, you know, I want to try it. I want to see if it works. I'll do anything, you know? So I think that's a very personal decision that everyone needs to make with their doctor, whether they want to be someone that is going to be part of a clinical trial, you know, be just, you know, in a trial with their doctor, basically. You know, I personally have chosen to wait and kind of see what happens with that. But, you know, I think that that's very individual. But what I was getting at before I sidetracked was that those drugs aren't covered by insurance because they're not,
because they're trial.
not FDA approved for that condition, for alopecia, even though they're approved for other things. So basically it's like thousands of dollars. Like if you go on one of these JAK inhibitors, like I think it's like $3,500 a month.
Okay.
Out of pocket, like just, you know, Now I think that there are ways. So, you know, if you are interested in that stuff, like I would say definitely talk to your doctor, because I've talked to people who have gotten it for cheaper through, you know, some trial program where they're able to get like a certain 3-month supply for, you know, a really reduced rate or even free, or, you know, the doctor has samples or something, you know, and like there are ways around that. But in general, like if you want to take those drugs long term, they're very costly, in the thousands of dollars per month. So yeah, we're envisioning like in the legislative liaisons that the next fight, like once we get one of these drugs, is going to be like the fight to make it cost effective, to get it
covered by insurance,
you know. So that is probably on the horizon in the next couple of years. Something that we're going to be working on, which is exciting. I mean, at least there's something that they're looking at now that is possibly effective, you know. I mean, I remember when I first started going to the conferences and they did the medical panel, they were kind of like, you know, they didn't have like that much to say. I mean, they had some studies and some things that they were talking about, but there really wasn't like that much. Now it's like a totally different, like there's so much.
So research is moving
like there's so much research and so many clinical trials that are going on and so many different drugs and things that they're looking at, and it's really like made huge strides just in the last couple of years, just since I started going to the conferences in 2011. So, you know, you could only imagine in another 5 to 10 years where we're going to be. It's really exciting to think about. So, you know, hopefully I'll have hair again in some time in my lifetime, you know, who knows. Hair that is not, you know, removable, like attached to my head.
Now, I want to get a little bit more into the foundation and where people can find support. But before we do that, I know that you didn't mention it very much in just your title or anything to me, but I want to know just a little bit about this jewelry line that you and your sister started.
So funny. And we haven't actually done anything with it recently because some personal reasons, but now we're kind of getting geared up to start again. So this actually came about when I went through the loss of my eyebrows and eyelashes, because I just went like off the deep end. Like I was so upset and I just
so emotional,
something, right? And like I needed something. And my sister was literally like, she's a jewelry designer, and she was literally like, why don't we create like this amazing line of like enormous and like really beautiful earrings, and then we can like use you being bald as like the model, and then we can donate a portion of the money we make to charities related to alopecia. And I was like, no. And I kept telling her no. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Then I got to tell everyone that I'm bald, you know, like I got to be out there with it. And she was like, okay, fine. And then she would ask me again. And I was like, no. And then she would ask me again, like in a couple months. And then finally, like when I was going through the facial hair loss, I finally just was like, all right, let's do it. Like, whatever, like, let's do it. I need to do something like fun with this because I'm so like upset, you know?
Right.
So it was something interesting that we got to do together that made it fun. And like, you know, we did a photo shoot, which the pictures are amazing. I'm like, oh, that's me. I look good. Of course, I was, you know, 6 years younger and thinner and had professional makeup and airbrushing, but you know, whatever. There's pictures. So we had like a great time with it. At the time I was dating this guy who was a professional photographer. So I got him to agree to do the photo shoot for us. And, you know, under penalty of death, those pictures came out amazing. You know, he was going to get in a lot of trouble if they didn't come out amazing. And so we created like a bunch of huge earrings, and then we did like the photo shoot. We had created a website. We did a bunch of jewelry shows locally, and that was kind of like the first time that I started going out bald. Like I remember because she was like, okay, we're gonna go like sell this jewelry. The jewelry line is called Bald. Okay, it's an acronym though. Badass lawyer and designer. I'm the badass lawyer. She's the badass.
Love it.
So we thought it was funny because it was bald, you know, bald. So we were like, we got to go sell this jewelry and you have to be bald. She was like, you have to be bald. And I was like, oh, I don't want to. She's like, okay, that's part of the deal. Like, this is why we did this. So I started going out to all these like jewelry shows. There's like a little art district here in Miami. We started doing like pop-up shows and stuff. We were on the news and I did an interview with no hair on and we were in the, you know, some newspaper or something. And that was it. I mean, at that point I was like, all right, this is done. I'm out there bald. I'm on TV. Like, it is, you know, and that was really like what I used to kind of like come out. And then through that, I had the confidence to like because I had those awesome pictures, right? That I was finally like, I look good.
This is me. This is the new me.
Yeah. So I was like really confident with those pictures. I felt like they were beautiful. I was proud of them. And so I finally like got the, you know what, like the guts, I was going to use another word, but got the guts up to post a bald picture on Facebook. And I remember I did it in September because I was like, okay, it's Alopecia Awareness Month. I'm going to post this bald picture. I'm going to leave it up for the entire month of September. Ooh, like I was like, ooh, the whole month. And I was like, then I'm going to take it down and put the picture I had before back up. And so long story short, this was, I want to say 6 years ago at least. And I never took the picture down. I always left it. I've never changed my profile picture.
Beautiful. You are beautiful.
You know, I think maybe now I need to update it because, you know, I'm not 6 years younger anymore. But, you know, I decided to not take it down. And like from that point forward, I was just like, all right, I'm going to be out with this. I started getting more and more involved with NAF. The more you become like an advocate, the more you feel like
empowered, like
for me, like empowered to be out there, to be telling my story, to be showing my head. You know, I started doing a lot of speeches like with the local Rotary clubs and the Chamber of Commerce and a local business council here, where I would basically tell my story. I had all the pictures, and then I did, you know, the whole hair shenanigans, like where I started it with the hair on, and then at the beginning of the speech, I took my wig off and put it like on the podium or on the table in front of me and then did the whole speech bald. But I started doing those at like business related venues where people already knew me in a business capacity. And so I started to bring like the two worlds together. And now like I host things for my law firm, and then I'll like donate. Like yesterday I did a lunch and learn on a legal topic and I charged $25, but then I'm going to donate that money to NAF. And so like at the end, you know, I told them a little bit more about NAF. You know, I had my picture up on the screen without my hair and, you know, a little bit about the charity and etc. I do a lot of fundraisers locally where I'm inviting all my business contacts, people who know me from that other life of mine. And then, you know, I'm always bald at those fundraisers, you know, so that also kind of helps meld it all together. So kind of as time has gone on, I've been trying to bring like the two worlds that I kept separately more together. Because it's all me, right? I mean, that's all me. And so I'm only one person. I'm not like a split personality. Just me, you know? So I figured, you know, to try and bring those things together and infuse a little bit more of like my personal brand into my business. Since it is my business that I own, why not, right?
Right, right.
It's part of what makes me unique and interesting. So
A limited edition, as I always say.
And I've been wearing my blue ribbon for Alopecia Awareness Month all month. I've had it on every single outfit I've worn all month. So I also get, a lot of questions.
Right.
Because I wear it, all day on, all my outfits and everything for work. So people will ask me, oh, what's your blue ribbon? And then, I get to tell them. I mean, I was at a work event last week and, I had my wig on. I had gone straight from the office to this networking work event. And I had my blue ribbon on and I started talking about it to one of the ladies and she asked me what it was. And I told her the whole story and she had no idea. She had no idea because she's not really on Facebook. Like, we didn't know each other like out in social media land. We had a lot of face-to-face interactions through this one organization, but I always had my wig on, so she had no idea. And she was just like, she couldn't believe it, and she thought it was so interesting and fabulous. And, I was like, I just educated someone about alopecia. She didn't know what it was.
Great.
So, little things like that, like just wearing the ribbon and then, someone asking you about it. It could be something as small as that or as big as, being bald on the cover of this magazine that like everyone in my town has seen. So,
I think that it is amazing. You are amazing. So in kind of wrapping up, if people have been listening this week and they're going to continue to listen this week and they want to get involved in some way, or maybe they're the person in the bathroom that's taking that piece of hair to cover up that spot and they haven't talked to anybody about it. They want more information, but I would
say NAF is your best resource. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the secretary of the board of directors. Mm-hmm. I really mean that. I mean, that comes from the heart as a patient. And not just as one of the people that is on their board. I really think that as an organization, they are top notch and they are like, it's a great organization for everything across the board. I mean, they have support groups in practically every state. And I think the states that don't have support groups, they definitely have a telephone support contact.
Okay.
So if you reach out to NAF, you can find out where your closest support group, or if you don't have one close by, a telephone support contact is. I mean, that's a great place to start. I actually run the Miami support group recently because the girl that used to run it relocated to another state. So I was up to bat to run that. So, that's a great way to connect with local people one-on-one that are going through the same thing as you. The conference is an amazing place to really meet a lot of other people. And it's also really, really good for kids that have alopecia because they do these amazing kids camps where basically the kids will go off and do like their own thing. And they're separated by like age groups. So the littler kids are together and then like the medium kids and the older kids. And they're off doing like, I've never been to the kids camp because I got alopecia as an adult, but supposedly the kids camps are like amazing, right? Like everyone is like, we wish we could go to the kids camp. But then while the kids are off in kids camp, the adults who are both parents of the children in the kids camp and then also the adults that have alopecia are in like the other sessions. And they have support sessions. They have advocacy and awareness sessions. They've got like medical panels, question and answer panels, every kind of thing. There's also social events. A cocktail party and a big dance party and like all kinds of really cool events. And that's every single summer. So I definitely think like those are really good.
When is the main conference? When is that held?
It's every summer. So it's usually in like late June.
Okay.
Actually, I can tell you the next one. So the next one's going to be in Seattle this summer coming up. And I can tell you the exact dates if you just let me look at my calendar.
Yeah, and we can drop that below too.
On June 27th and it goes until the 30th. And it's Seattle this summer. And then next summer it'll be back in DC. It's in DC every 4th year. So every 4th year it's back in DC and it includes that Capitol Hill visit and like that lobbying advocacy on the Hill component every 4th year. And then in the off years it's somewhere in the US. This past summer it was in Arizona. We spent a steamy couple of days in Scottsdale, very hot, but very fun. It's always at like a beautiful property where there's like lots of things to do for kids and adults. And it's an amazing experience. So that would definitely be like a great way to get involved with NAF. Also, like their website is amazing. So even if you're just looking for information,
like outside events or information outside events,
they post a lot of the outside events. So if you're looking for events in your area, the NAF will have an events calendar with events in different parts of the country listed. They also just have like so much information on there. I mean, there's all kinds of information on research, you know, different support information that you can get, and it's different audiences, right? So like if you're a parent looking for information because your child is alopecia, or if you are an adult who has it yourself, you know, they have it customized to different audiences, and a lot of really beautiful pictures. There's a lot of great information. So I would definitely go to NAF.org, NAAF.org is the website for the foundation. And that's where you can find just a wealth of information. I mean, obviously, if you need help navigating any of that, I'd be happy to help anyone that's listening, you know. So definitely, like I'm always happy to, like, for example, introduce you to the staff member at NAF that is in charge of a specific thing, you know, like the guy, if you're interested in becoming a legislative liaison or hearing more about those programs, you know, the person on staff, you know, I can introduce you to that specific person. You could always just even call the office at NAF and they'll connect you to the right person. But I'm happy to be kind of like a facilitator of that. If that makes someone feel more comfortable, I'm happy to do that always.
And we're going to drop all of those links below this live as well, so everybody can just catch on to that. And I would assume too, because I've worked with some different foundations trying to find out medical stuff for states, if someone would call them looking for someone who specializes, a doctor that specializes in alopecia in a different state, they would have a list there, wouldn't they?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And they also have a chief medical director on staff who's amazing. Okay. She always does a speech at the conference every year, and like everyone gives her a standing ovation because she's just the best. And so they definitely have in-house advice, but then they can also help you find trials in your area, different studies that are going on in your area, maybe connect you with an appropriate doctor in your area. Yeah, all of that they can help with through the foundation. They also have scholarships to attend the conference if people are having financial difficulty, but they really want to go to the conference. There are different kinds of scholarships. There's also a program that you can apply to get funding for a wig. It's called the Ascot Fund. So if you want to purchase a wig, but you're having financial difficulty with that, they also have that kind of program. They have a great, hold on. This is Ella. Ella is the bald Barbie. And so actually NAF has these bald Barbies. And if you want one for your child, you just have to ask and they'll send it to you for free.
Oh, how awesome is that?
So like if your child, you know, if you have a child, Keisha, you know, she probably doesn't have any dolls that look like her. So Ella is awesome in that way. And NAF can actually send it to you free of charge.
Perfect.
I love her. She's like my little.
I know. We need to take a picture of Ella. We need to take a picture and put her up too.
I know. She's so funny. I love her.
Now, in our kind of final wrap up for tonight, I know you have a big event coming up, right? Is it in the Miami area? Do you have an event coming up?
Mentioning that, yeah. So I decided a little bit before, but mainly when I joined the board of directors, I was like, okay, I need to like raise some money, you know, because as a board member, like you're expected to do some heavy fundraising and bring in some money, you know. So I was like, you know, I really want to do something that I can bring in like nice chunks of money. Plus also like, I just love networking and, you know, meeting people in the community. It's also good for my business to do stuff like that. So I decided to start holding a fundraiser. So this is going to be the third one. It's going to be the third annual fundraiser for NAF down here in Miami. This year it's going to be on November 17th at the Coral Gables Museum, which is a really beautiful museum in the city where my office is, called Coral Gables. And we're going to have Havana Nights theme. So it's going to be like a Havana Nights kind of Cuban party where it's an adult event. It's at night, you know, so it's open bar, Cuban food. We do casino games. So last year we had like the Roaring 20s kind of Great Gatsby type of thing. And then this year we decided to do Havana Nights, but we're going to still have casino games. We're going to have dominoes, you know, all
Nice.
kinds of fun silent auction. We do like a really big silent auction. A lot of people in the community have been super supportive with giving us really cool silent auction items for people to bid on. That's a great way to raise money. So that's going to be really fun. It's a huge endeavor. Luckily, I got some really great people helping me with the planning. And so that's on November 17th. So that if you're in the local area of South Florida.
Or you want to leave Wisconsin because it's cold.
Yeah,
so you want to head down.
Because it's warm here and November is no different. It's going to be great weather down here in Miami. So if you are interested in, you know, checking that event out, please let me know. We'd love to have you. It's going to be a lot.
And you have a link for that too, right?
I do. Yeah. I do.
Yes. Could you drop the
everything?
You're so prepared. You have links for all the stuff, which I love.
The links.
Yeah.
I definitely have a link for that. So yeah, I can
just drop that in the comments.
That would be great to have people that are interested in supporting NAF come out to the event or contribute in some way to the event.
Yes.
Number 7,
great cause, and you get out of Wisconsin if you're listening from Wisconsin. I know a lot of the people who listen, they're from everywhere else that's warm except for Wisconsin. They do not have them live in the Midwest. I don't know why. Because it will be like 20 degrees like in the next week, I'm sure.
Oh, no. Not here. It's really hot.
I know. So with that, is there any last words that you would like to leave us with tonight?
I would say, you know, everyone that goes through this journey goes through it personally, right? So I don't want anyone to feel pressured that they need to come out and be bald, you know, or take their wig off. I mean, I think it's definitely like so personal. And, you know, I want you to know that like from the other people with this, like there's no judgment. Like, you know, we all go through this in our own way. And so like, if you're more comfortable wearing your wig, wear your wig. If you're more comfortable being bald, be bald, you know, do what is going to help you, cope with this. But I would definitely say that if you are feeling like you want to take your wig off or be more open with, you know, your condition, like people are definitely more accepting than you think they're going to be, right? Like we are always our own harshest critics, I think, in life. And so we always think that people are going to reject us or have this terrible reaction. And it's really just the opposite. I mean, when you're authentic with people and vulnerable and really, you know, showing what you truly are to people, 10 times out of 10, people are very receptive to that, very positive, most everyone has something going on with themselves in their life. And it's probably just not as visible as alopecia, right? Alopecia is very visible. And so it's something that, you know, people see, but everyone's got something. They might just, you know, you might just not be able to see it as easily as you see alopecia. So a lot of times I realize that people will relate to my story, even if they don't have alopecia, but they've got like something else. And then they relate to, you know, the things that I'm saying about, you know, what I've been through with my journey. So I definitely think that, you know, my parting words would be that, you know, showing your true authentic self and being vulnerable to other people is really being strong, and it's a show of strength. And I think people respect that and identify with it, no matter what, you know, whether they have alopecia or something else. I mean, I think that people really respect that and can identify with you when you show your authentic self. So those are my parting words. Anyone that wants to reach out to me and, you know, that's going through this and wants some support, I definitely think like this is a disease where we need support of other people. It's much harder to suffer with alopecia alone, and in silence and feeling like you're the only one on earth that has this, because I know like I felt that way before I realized that it wasn't true, you know, and that's a very isolating feeling. And so like once you start joining kind of like the alopecia world of other, you know, support where we can all support each other, it's really helpful, and it helps with the coping with this a lot. So anyone that wants to reach out to me, please do. I'm always happy to talk to you.
Teacher, you are an inspiration, and I will second that. Remember to be you, like they were talking yesterday. Ronnie's son yesterday said that to her. Be you, Mom. I just about lost it. Be you. And so that's exactly what you're speaking to. And you are such an inspiration. And I'm so happy to have you to share with all of our audience.
For having me. I really appreciate it.
And like she said, if you guys need someone, a direct contact to reach out to, she is here. So thank you for that. And thank you for staying with us for this whole time tonight. We've been chatting for a little bit over an hour now.
So thank you. I like to talk, girl. I'm an Italian.
So good.
I talk. I'll keep you here all night.
And we will drop all of these links we're talking about below, so you guys will have everything. So thank you guys again for tuning in tonight. If you would like to find out any more about the other services we offer over at the On Air Advocate, or see any of our other tutorial videos, podcasts, any of that, head on over to onairadvocate.com. Also, if you'd like to become part of our private community, please head up to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and request to be a part of our private community. And last things is that if you think that this broadcast that we did this evening could be relevant for anybody, please hit the share button and share the love with others. So on that, you guys all have a fabulous Wednesday evening. Thanks so much.
Bye. Good night.
Bye, Deidre.